Asafa Powell is regarded by many as having the most explosive block start of all time. He's someone that I'm constantly using during my technical analysis to show people how to get better at getting out of the blocks. And so today, what I thought I would do is go ahead and show you guys exactly what are some of the key things that he's doing to separate your own block start. So if you're an athlete looking to better understand where your foot position should be, how to be more explosive out of the block start, and even some exercises and some drills and some key separators that Asafa Powell was able to do in order to have such an amazing block start. Watch this video to be able to find more in-depth analysis of exactly what he was doing. We'll get right into it. All right, so we're going to have two different views here. First one's going to be slightly from the back, and then we're going to also have this side view. The side view is really good because it's just very, very slow motion. And I think the most important thing to really see here, and you can see in this first action, we'll get a side view or side back view as well, is as he's pushing into the block, you can see how he's getting both feet to go down. We've talked about this in the past, but what really happens if we get this view as well is he's really pushing back and down into the block. So you can see that first action, how he's up here and that foot is going down into the block. So it's a vertical force that he ends up getting because he pushes downwards into the box to then make it so then he can explode up. And in terms of some of the numbers he was actually able to generate, he was generating about 800, somewhere between 800 and 900. This is something that is somewhat of a generalization in terms of how much newtons of force he was able to generate, but it was about 8 to 900 newtons. And I just say that because of what they did with Usain Bolt and how much force he was able to create out of the blocks. And even in Usain Bolt's book, he talks about how Asafa Powell generated even more force. So it's estimated that he was in that same type of area. I'm guesstimating that he was probably in the 8 to 900 range of Newton, which would be about 2 to 300 pounds of force. A little bit over 200 pounds would be my guess in terms of how much force he was able to generate into the blocks here. And again, a big part of this, I think, ends up going into that initial action. So when you're getting set up in your block starts, when you're watching this, I would say, a lot of times people want to get a better understanding of like where to put this first step in the back foot in the alignment there. I do think you want to be able to have a good understanding of the angle of the shin. You don't want to have that shin being too high. And we also don't want to end up having your knees really wide. Sometimes people will get very close to the line with their feet and just won't have that range of motion to make it so then they can get a strong downward push. And if your knees are going wide already, then you're not going to be able to get a downward push. Sorry for my arrows here. But what you want to be able to understand is the more relaxation you have, then the more power you're going to have into the start. And I do think that the more you can get these shins to be facing kind of downward, you don't have to have it exact angle here. You can saw the first one I was like at 25-ish, so you can see kind of where those angles are at. I would say typically that you want to have your first block about 2 of your feet away from the line, and then the back one wants to be about maybe 3.5. Some people will do like 2.5 and then 3 when their feet will be a little bit closer together. Is something that you want to play with depending on what you are most comfortable with. Some of the things that stood out in terms of his muscles, he did have an extremely strong psoas muscle, which is essentially a hip flexor. And so these are some hip flexor exercises that I think are really good, very helpful for you to be able to do. And it does seem like the stronger your hip flexors are, then the more power you're going to be able to put into the blocks. There's some people that talked about how he was actually able to break the blocks because of how much force that he's able to generate really down and back as he was first getting into the box. So I do think the shin angle ends up being important, and as well as that initial action. It's with both feet that you really want to be able to push. And you're pushing down into the blocks to then get your leg to be able to come up and through. Another big part of it, and I do think that back leg ends up being important to better understand what you could do with the front leg. So he pushes down hard with that back foot, drives that knee through. Another reason why they said he had such a great block star was because he had a very elongated horizontal push with this front foot. Okay, and again, I think a big part of that is because he pushed down with that back foot to make it so that he's driving his knee up here. And now because he has that range with this front leg, this front knee, what was the back foot, now it's that front knee. Now he can continue to push off the ground for just a longer period of time. So he's able to push out for a very long period of time. So what do we need to do to be able to improve the block start? How do you get a more explosive block start? One, make sure you get the setup right. Okay, so we want to have the shin angles like how we see here. about 30, 25 to 30 degrees on the back leg, and then about 35 to 40 degrees in the front leg. The first action wants to be really pushing down with both feet, and that back foot wants to be pushing down and back. And then when you're pushing, it wants to be more of like a downward push with that back foot to make it so then you can come upwards with the knee. And we have a very long push with that front foot. I think another way to be able to help you out with that is as you're getting set up, kind of lift up that front big toe to be able to then get a longer push out of that foot. If we see on this first one here, he kind of has it lifted up. See how he has that toe lifted off the block, and then he kind of goes into it, goes forward into it as he's pushing out. That could be another kind of technical thing that you can do to make it so you have a little bit longer time period that you're able to go through that push. So 4 or 5 things there that I think can help you out if you are struggling with the block start. And I think that this is a critical part of being able to effectively accelerate. If you don't know how to get out of the blocks, well, you're not going to be able to run a great 100. You're not going to be able to run a great 60. You're really not even be able to run a great 200 because the acceleration needed is really a big fundamental part of the block start. If you're able to get out of there technically very, very well, get that horizontal force, that's a big part of the acceleration necessary to be able to run at your fastest. So if you want to get a little bit more information about how you can improve your own block start, I do have a link down below to a service that we provide for coaching on your block start. You guys can check that out. As always, thanks for watching. You can like and subscribe to the channel if you like the information, and we'll talk to you soon.